All right, guys, in the Build Show today, we're talking about how you start your own LLC. How do you get into business as a builder? Today's teacher, Jake Bruton, my buddy out of Columbia, Missouri, who's been with the Build Show since the get-go. Jake's an amazing businessman. He's also an amazing building science teacher. With that being said, starting your own LLC, let's get going.
I'm Jake Bruton, and today on the Build Show, I have a special guest, Jose Caldera, who is our attorney here at Arrow Building. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And we are going to start a business today. Okay, so Jose is joining us today because we're going to have a conversation, kind of a business 101 conversation, and we're going to talk about, so I want to start my own thing. And what do I do? No, take a second, introduce yourself, Jose.
Sure. So my name is Jose Caldera. I'm a business attorney here in Columbia, Missouri. I'm with the law firm of Smith Lewis. I've been practicing for, 15 years now, representing Arrow for quite some time. And I focus primarily on business litigation and business transactional. So I've kind of seen it all from a business standpoint. And there are some common pitfalls that we can avoid if you set up your business correctly.
Yeah, so I talk constantly when I talk to people about how to run a business and running your own business, that like our industry, more than many others, is populated by carpenters that happen to run businesses instead of business owners that happen to be carpenters.
Sure.
And I think it's because so many people in our industry have like deep passion and love for the craft and a love for what we do and working with our hands. And because there is a low barrier of entry, you don't have to borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to start a business in this industry most of the time. There are people that get into business and start their own thing just because they can, which can be a good thing. It means that there is accessibility where there might not be in other industries, but it also means that there are people starting businesses that have zero business experience, zero training, and zero information as to where to start.
Sure.
And so I think we're going to have the LLC conversation to start out with today. And this will just be like our base.
Sure.
And maybe this is part of a larger series over time, but we're not just going to say I own a business and start contracting. We have to file paperwork. We have to start a business somehow.
So that fundamental point is a great starting point, because a lot of folks will just hang up their shingle and just go out there and start doing work, right? Go out and do carpentry work, whatever it is. You need to understand that from a business standpoint, there's two major things you're going to have to consider as you own a business. Liability risk for you as a business owner, and then taxes. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about taxes because I'm not an accountant. What I tell a lot of new clients is your two best relationships should be with an accountant and an attorney, in that order. Your accountant will take care of you long term. Your attorney should be able to set you up so you're protected.
And I'll add one more: insurance.
Insurance,
The third on that stack is insurance.
Very good point. So from when you're setting up your business, the first question you need to ask is, look, do I want to try to insulate myself and my family's personal assets from whatever it is that I'm going to do? And my recommendation would be, yes, you should. If you want to insulate yourself and protect yourself from the blowback of anything you're going to do, so let's say you go do some carpentry work and you do something that's deficient, or something goes wrong and somebody gets hurt, you want to make sure that if that person comes after you, they have to go through something else before they get to your personal assets. That's where an LLC comes into play.
Even if you are 25 years old, you're not married, and you are living in an apartment and you don't even own your pickup, even if you're saying like, I don't have assets that need protecting, first of all, you're probably going to be working towards someday having things that you might not want to lose. And second of all, you still don't want to be out there and at risk. I don't think that there's a situation where you're like, nah, we don't need to do this.
Because if you choose to just operate on your own without an LLC and somebody sues you and gets a judgment against you, that is now part of your credit record long term, and it could affect future financing. It could affect a variety of things. So it's a bad idea, and it's very rare that I'm ever going to encourage somebody to not form an LLC for whatever their business operation is. especially in Missouri, where it's very cheap to file the paperwork to set up an LLC. Now, we'll talk about what it takes to set up an LLC properly, but to literally just form one, it's $51 in Missouri. And you file one piece of paper with the Missouri Secretary of State saying, I want my LLC to be named this. Here's who you can contact if ever the LLC gets in trouble. You should absolutely do it. So, first recommendation is if you're going to go hang up your own shingle and start your business, regardless of age, form an LLC. Now, filing the paperwork with the Secretary of State is one of the three major components. I'll expand it to four. Four major components of having a properly operating LLC. So first you file your paperwork with the Secretary of State. You pay your $51. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to get a federal tax ID, right? Because you're going to have to pay taxes. And then in Missouri, you're going to use that federal tax ID to get a state tax ID. That is a free service that you can get online through the IRS. The third part, which is, in my opinion, is the most important part, is you need to have what's called an operating agreement for your LLC. Your operating agreement is your rules of the business. How does the thing operate? How do what happens if the business goes under and we need to dissolve? What happened? Who's going to be the person that talks to the IRS for tax issues? It's the rules that govern the LLC. And then the fourth one is a recent change to federal law, and it's called a beneficial ownership information filing, which, by the way, we need to do that for you guys. The BOI it's a pretty straightforward process that the U.S. Treasury requires now of all LLCs. You basically have to file a form with the federal government saying, hey, I'm Jake, I own this LLC, here's my driver's license. So that way the federal government can track, well, who owns what businesses in the United States. You only do that one time. Going back to the operating agreement, the operating agreement is going to be one of the most important things that you do, because that is the first sign to the world, even though it's a private document and you keep it in, your business records. It is the first sign to the world that, hey, they are intending to operate as something different than just themselves. Okay. And that's what an LLC is. An LLC is a separate entity. It is akin to another person that is holding itself out there saying, I do business in carpentry or what have you. So I'm happy to pivot to what you should be doing to protect yourself.
Well, I think the other thing is when you're setting up this LLC, this is where that first stance of we need an accountant also comes into play, because there are a bunch of different ways that you can set up an LLC, and they all have tax implications. Right. There are certain aspects where if you're going to be holding large equipment like planes, maybe a C Corp is better for you for tax reasons. Or if you're not, maybe an S Corp has different implications where you might be able to save by not paying Social Security on owner's draws and things like that. So there are back and forth aspects there that you need to be talking to your accountant as to how you're going to be being paid, how your draws are going to work, how things will wind up at the end of the year, and that sort of thing. And the accountant is going to be the key figure here that's going to answer those questions for you.
Correct. And within the operating agreement, at least under Missouri law, that's where you're supposed to state that we reserve the right to tax ourselves, even though we're an LLC, to tax ourselves as an S Corp, to basically get that tax benefit. If you don't say it in there, there are default provisions that govern how your business is done. So if you forget or fail to create an operating agreement, you've already set yourself way behind other competitors.
Yep.
Because from a liability protection, and we'll get into this, from a liability protection, you are still kind of exposed, but then from a tax benefit standpoint, you have not fully availed yourself of all the various tax benefits that you can get from a properly formed LLC.
Yeah. And don't take any of my side of things as actual tax advice. Get professional help. That sounds like you have mental problems, but get professional help. Okay, so where do we go from here? We have our operating agreement. We file the paperwork. We have an EIN, or we have our tax number with the Fed and with the state.
Yep.
What's next?
Okay, so now we've formed the thing. The most important thing that you can do is always remember your LLC is separate from you. Okay, so go open a business account with that federal EIN and use that just for the business. It is not your personal piggy bank. You shouldn't be buying your groceries from it. Keep it separate. The reason that's important is because for an LLC to really serve as a shield for you and prevent people from coming after your personal stuff, you have to be able to objectively, through paperwork, show that the LLC operates independently from you. If you commingle your money, if you basically have people, if you have clients cut you checks in your personal name, so to Jake instead of to Arrow, a savvy attorney, so the client would hire a Jose Caldera, and I could argue that you guys are actually not different, you and the LLC. So therefore, from a justice and an equitable standpoint, the court should disregard that the LLC exists, and I should be able to go after your personal stuff if we have a problem. Don't do that.
Therefore, negating
the whole purpose of an LLC. And that is an easily avoidable problem by just making sure your LLC operates independently from you. Now, you can do what's called distributions from your LLC, meaning that like you're going to want to make money through your business, and that's fine. Your accountant can help set this up for you. What you do is simply say, all the money that I earn goes into this business account, and then on a certain period of time, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, whether it's bi-weekly, I will take out X amount of dollars as my compensation. And that's how you do it. You don't just go in there and use the debit card for the business as your personal card. That simple step of keeping things separate will maximize the protections of the LLC. And so if something happens where you do a bad job, or somebody claims that you did a bad job and they try to come after you, your LLC is now completely fortified and able to protect you and defend you. That's important from an insurance standpoint too. Because as you said, insurance is incredibly important, and the insurance for the LLC is also going to look to see whether or not you've been operating your LLC properly. They will look for any excuse to say, oh, you weren't operating your LLC properly, therefore we're not responsible for paying. Don't give them that excuse. It's simple. Keep your LLC, which is what I recommend you set up. If not a corporation, obviously talk to an accountant and attorney to see what's best for you. But set up your entity and then keep it separate from you and operate it professionally.
Now,
if you do that, you're going to be in a good position.
I'm going to add on the most basic of levels, if you are diligent with keeping the funds completely separate, it is way less likely you ever get yourself into the most basic of trouble of crap, I spent money that wasn't supposed to be profit yet,
Correct.
and I need that money to pay a lumber bill.
Correct.
Or vice versa, like I wind up using my house payment to pay a lumber bill, and now I've gotten my personal finances in trouble because the company was in trouble. And there's absolutely no reason why the two should be mingling. And I absolutely did that the first couple of years that I was in business, because I thought we were one and the same. If the business was broke, we were broke, and vice versa. And that's absolutely not the case. Correct. Wherein they are separate entities, and there are times of the year where money moves back and forth in a way of where like one of them is more profitable than the other, and they need to be separate. And the second you force yourself to keep things separate, the second things will be much clearer as to whether or not you and your spouse have money and whether or not the business has money.
Sure. And if you need some kind of unique flexibility for your LLC, let's say you have multiple LLCs, make sure you're talking to your attorney about what the best way to ensure flexibility amongst them is, because there's ways we can still retain the protections of the LLCs while allowing you that flexibility. But that's going to be unique to your particular situation. For most people, that individual carpenter who's out there doing individual jobs on his or her own, they still need the LLC. They need to treat it differently from themselves. But honestly, it's a mindset. It's the idea of my LLC. When I'm out there and I leave the door, grab my keys, and I go to a job, I am operating on behalf of a business, even though it's me, right? It's just little old Jose walking out there doing the job. I'm out there as my business. And if you adopt that mindset of when I'm out walking out the door and I'm going to do a job, I'm the business, and everything else should trickle down from there. So along those lines, it's very important that when you're dealing with clients, once you've properly formed an LLC, make sure you're letting them know that you're operating as your business, not you. Each state is a little different. Missouri has some case law that says that if you never tell a client that I'm there as Arrow, and you just say, hey, cut a check to Jake, that Jake could still be on the hook. And you want to avoid that. And you can do that simply by saying, hey, I'm here as Arrow, even though Jake's going to be the one doing the work, but Arrow's the one you're contracting with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's very important to just kind of understand that mindset of the LLC is separate from you. show that to the world, keep your paperwork in a way that keeps it separate from you, and then you should be protected pretty well down the road. Yeah.
I will also say that like year 4 or 5, we also quit doing the like, do I get a discount if I pay with cash?
Yeah.
Like if you're paying with cash, I'm still going to take it to the bank. We did a renovation for some clients, and he paid me for like $45,000 in $5 bills because he saved $5 every day.
Mm-hmm.
He had a cash business. He brought $5 bill home with him every day and put it in his safe. I still took the $5 bills to the bank and deposited them. They still need to cycle through our system. I'm still going to pay our subcontractors with cash or with a check. Like it doesn't matter to me.
Arrow on it.
Yep. It's still going to file through our system. It does not matter to me. I don't want you to write the check to me. Like, and it took a while for clients to be like, oh, you're not going to give us a discount like your dad did or whatever it was, you know, and it doesn't make any sense for me to try to give you a discount if I still have to pay taxes on it. I still have to run it through our system, and it isn't beneficial for me to try to wander around and give people $5 bills to pay my bills. Sure. It doesn't save me anything. It's more difficult to track. It's not worth it. It
seems really stuffy and formal to operate that way, but the reason behind it, and there's always a reason behind it, is because it creates a paper trail that allows people like me to then defend you if somebody comes in, because you're going to have that one person that says you did a shoddy job or you did something wrong. And if you want to avoid a situation where you're having to go to that person and be like, hey guys, how about I just refund you money? You really need to do the paper trail work on the back end and protect yourself. So that way you can kind of stand your ground and be like, no, I did everything right. And if you want to dispute and claim that I did a shoddy job, come after me, because that's how this works. And I will be able to defend myself because I did everything right on the back end, it seems a little formal, but it's really to protect yourself for that rare situation where things are going to escalate with a client into a formal dispute. And the amount of times that I can, without getting into specifics, because I don't want to talk about client situation, the difference between a properly formed LLC that protects itself and doesn't commingle its funds and gets in a dispute with a client versus one that doesn't is the LLC that is properly formed. Odds are whatever dispute I have with the client is going to result in the LLC getting paid some money, even if it's a little less money than what they were promised. The other one could result in the individual losing everything, because they don't have those individual protections and they don't have the leverage of, hey, I've got my papers in order.
Yeah.
If we're going to go to bat and have a fight, I've got my paperwork in order. So it is very informal. It's one of the, it's like with what you do. It's the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, hoping that it will never be an issue and nobody will ever notice it. But if you mess up and don't do it right, it could result in catastrophe. And unfortunately, I see quite a bit of that where people come in and ask me to just clean up their mess because they didn't bother to do the due diligence of not commingling their funds, they never represented that they were working on behalf of their LLC. They had no operating agreement. It's a nightmare. So,
yep. I will say the other thing that actually came up for us in the last few years is that when we have the conversation about LLC and our accountants, and then we go into insurance, is that our insurance agent looked at us and said, I think we're very well protected in the construction company. I think you guys are very well protected on the personal front, but I think the one thing that we're missing is an umbrella policy that covers you guys as a whole, because what's going to happen, and I'm going to use myself as an example, is something happens at your construction company where somebody's going to try to sue you, and they're suing the construction company, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to argue that it should be you and your spouse involved in it as well, and then they're going to look at you and they're going to say also they own 2 other businesses as well, and so we should be going after everything, and then we put an umbrella policy in place that tries to cover everything as a whole, just as one more level of insurance at a surprisingly cost-effective rate. Correct. As well.
Correct. I have an umbrella policy for my family. I mean, it's a way to ensure that you aren't having to dip. Ideally, it doesn't always work this way, but ideally, you won't have to dip into your own pocket to defend yourself when somebody tries to come after all of your stuff. The insurance will foot the bill. It's an invaluable resource to have proper insurance. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I'll be honest with you, whenever disputes arise, most attorneys understand that if I'm going to go after Jake, the individual, Jake may not have much. He may be the 24-year-old that only has a car. Well, I'm not going to bring a lawsuit to collect on your car, But if you have insurance, then all of a sudden it's a little bit more worth it. And that sounds like, oh, by having insurance, I'm incentivizing people to come after me. But the way it works on the back end is the insurance will then work with the attorney to, the opponent to try to resolve the issue. And they may just cut a small check and the thing just goes away.
Yep.
So it behooves you to have insurance because yes, it might incentivize people to come after you. I don't want to say incentivize, but it actually protects you on the back end, because if somebody chooses to come after you, you can't stop them, right? So you need to have somebody that's got your back and able to fight back. And you need to have done your part to set up the person who's fighting for you up for success.
Yep. Okay. There's a lot to take in, but I think it's super important. Go back and rewatch it if it was too much. But taking it serious as being a business owner, I didn't do it to begin with when I first bought the business from my parents. It actually took me a few years to realize that I was a business owner and no longer just a carpenter. And as soon as I did, I started making more money. I was better protected for our family, and we had things in place like a contract, and that has made our lives a heck of a lot.
You have this
easier.
fancy place.
So, Jose, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Until next time, thanks for watching, and have a good day.
All right, guys, if you like today's video, I would highly recommend you sign up for Build Show Live. It's this fall in Dallas, Texas. Jake and I both are going to be teaching and actually doing a session on the VIP day. That's Thursday before the show actually opens, that I think is geared specifically for you, business owners or people who are about to get into business and really want to learn from seasoned vets like me and Jake. I think that you should go check it out. BuildShowLive.com for tickets. I believe when you're watching this, tickets are now live, and we only have 300 of those VIP passes, guys. So those are going to sell out. You got to get on to get those now. With that being said, go follow Jake on Instagram. Go check out his videos on thebuildshow.com. He's an absolute incredible teacher, an amazing businessman, and an amazing building science teacher. So I'm so thankful that Jake is on The Build Show. With that being said, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.